one of the things I've been really ruminating on is this idea of just sort of allowing awareness more room to do what it does, so to speak. What I mean by that is, if we're constantly, pointing our awareness at objects of sense pleasures and thoughts and feelings and sensations and focusing all our attention on those things, it's as if we're not really giving awareness room to be what it is and do what it does, which is to liberate us from bondage. And awareness is always, when it's left alone, it is always in a state of expansion, right? Awareness can never contract, it can only expand. So, we should be really interested in, how can I get out of my own way, so to speak, right? Awareness is always trying to set me free, but I'm always trying to bind it to objects. And really, it's just, I have to stop doing that, right? Like Christ said, I'm always about my Father's business, meaning this is my nature, to be free, to be liberated, to expand. And so, because we know that the self, which we are, is always forever shining within, but is simply covered up by all the noise, all the false imagery we're paying attention to. That's all we really have to do, right? It doesn't mean we're not free. We're all free right now. We're just very distracted, free people, right? We're very distracted, free beings. And so right now, as all of you are sitting here, no matter how awakened or unawakened you might feel, you are all the Buddha already. And you always have been, yeah? But the Buddha, we might say, is swallowed up by the sense of personal doership. It is overlooked when there's a driving inertia of, I'm the doer, I'm the actor, I'm independent, I'm separate. And so, this is what this masterclass is sort of all about, right? How do we get rid of this doer, this false notion? And so I think I've said this before, but for me personally, if I had to say, what are the top 3 qualities that I would choose for any aspirant to have for awakening? Me personally, I would say humility, number 1, which really just means a burning desire for liberation, right? A burning desire to know what's true, to know who you are. But it often manifests itself as humbleness, humility, right? But the second one would be inner silence, the cultivation of inner silence. Third would be a lifestyle, a habit of self-examination. But I want to talk about cultivating inner silence, because when I talk about giving awareness room, this is what I'm talking about. Is silence is the room awareness needs to go about its Father's business and start setting you free from your bondage, right? Your imagined bondage, of course. And so what is it that ultimately cultivates inner silence? That's the good question to ask. What is it really that quiets the mind? Because we know that, the self is always speaking in its silent manner, right? It speaks in that silence. And so that's why the old Zen koan says, when you speak, it is silent, which means you're covering it up with noise. But it says, when you are silent, it speaks. When you chase it, it runs from you. When you let it go, it comes to you, right? That's kind of how inner silence works. So it's like a soldier, trying to listen to their commanding officer on the radio and get the commands for what they're supposed to do, right? To be led, to be guided on this mission they're on. But there's so much static on the radio, I can't hear what you're saying, right? The commanding officer is speaking, right? Is giving commands, but you can't hear it. There's too much noise, right? So silence is very important on the awakening path. So I want to give you a bit of a different take on what a quiet mind is. And, we could say, how do you cultivate inner silence? Well, lots of meditation. And I say, yes, maybe, right? Maybe meditation will help you if your meditation is true. If you're meditating, let's say, with the right attitude, then yes, meditation can be very helpful. But there's something deeper than that that's causing the noise in the mind. And it is taking the world to be real, essentially. That's what causes the mind to be busy and noisy. Because if you just think about it logically, the more real the mind takes the world, objects, experiences, thoughts, feelings, projections, the more real it takes those things to be, then the busier it has to be to sort it all out and make meaning out of it and quantify it all, right? So the more real the world appears to you, the busier your mind will be. So that's the second belief of ego, right? We talk about here. If we simplify it, I know I put it in different language in the course saying my happiness depends on outcomes. But what that belief really is that there is an external world, right? Independent of me. And that world has all my fulfillment in it. I can complete myself in the world, which definitely is real. Yeah. That's the second belief of ego. So we have to come to see and believe that the world is unreal. And that's a bit of a misnomer for some of us because we say, well, what do you mean? It's like it's happening. It's right here. What do you mean it's not real? When we say it's not real, we mean it is not lasting. It's not permanent, right? It's extremely transient. And this doesn't have to be some like esoteric idea, right? It doesn't have to be a idea you try to convince yourself of every day. The world looks super real, but I'm going to try to think it's not real. You don't have to do that. You just have to examine your direct experience. Look at the facts, right? Where's yesterday? All the stuff, all the activity, all the doership that happened, where is it? It's gone, right? Disappeared without a trace. No matter what moments of pleasure and fulfillment the ego got to have yesterday, they're gone. And what is it doing now? Chasing more pleasurable experiences. So what's the point of it all, right? When am I going to end this wild goose chase? Everything is transient. Everything is passing. It's just like I say, it's Kleenex on fire, right? When you know that whatever you're experiencing now will be over soon and you can't keep it with you, right? What is there to cling to or resist anymore? What is there that's happening now that I can cling to or push away when I know it's just a passing cloud, right? It's transient. It's gone like the wind. When you know that everything is untrue, unreal, meaning not permanent, like my being is permanent, then you just stop being so interested in chasing objects, trying to find fulfillment in the world. And that in and of itself is what quiets the mind. So cultivating inner silence is about becoming alert within yourself. And you start to notice when you're alert inside of yourself, you're not looking outwards so much anymore, but really looking inside. You start to notice how much of your attention is being consumed by objects, thought objects, stories, projections, unfulfilled desires, right? Fears, anxieties. And, if you think that these things are real, then you have to pursue them and then not pursue self-realization, right? Because you are real, because you exist and you are existence itself, you can only be interested in what's real. Have you ever thought about that? When you know something's not real, don't you just lose interest in it? Like you may be interested in it, like for the sake of an experience you're having, but you're not like invested in it, right? When you know it's not real. What you are invested in is what's real. And that's what you're always pursuing. So if you think the world is real and experiences and otherness and separate objects and desires, if you think that stuff is real and can fulfill you, then you have no choice but to pursue it, right? You're in bondage to it. You're enslaved. And conversely, you're not pursuing self-realization because you're looking outwards rather than inwards. So when the mind stops taking the world to be real, what is there to think about? What is there to sort out? What is there to process? What is there to analyze, right? Real wisdom, real knowledge is knowing that you don't know. You can't know what anything ultimately is, what its purpose is there for, where it came from, how did it arise, how did it disappear? You can't know that stuff because that's the mystery of the self, right? That's the mystery of your own being. So ironically, this is what happened to me in my 20s. When I talk about how I came into this awakening journey, was that I, at a fairly young age, got to experience a lot of these sense pleasures in the world. Got to be a fitness model, a bodybuilder, CrossFit competitor. I got to date lots of beautiful women. I didn't have a lot of money, but what I noticed was all of these things that, the world would look at me and say, oh, that guy's got it all. All these things I was chasing and acquiring, not only did they not make me happier, it was even worse than that. I became very aware that all of these things I'm chasing, whether it's relationships, fame, glory, acclaim, approval from others, whatever, all of these things I was pursuing and acquiring, not only didn't make me happier, they made me less happy, right? I got to see that by chasing these objects, it's increasing my bondage. It's increasing my misery. And so something about coming to terms with that allowed this awakening grace to meet me and just start unfolding in me. So ironically, again, it's knowing the world to be a false appearance. It doesn't make you cynical or cold towards life. In fact, quite the opposite. Once you know that the world is unreal and can't satisfy you, it actually becomes very sacred and holy, because it's like becoming lucid in a dream, right? If you've ever had a lucid dream where you're having some crazy dream experience and then this, earth-shattering realization hits you, oh my gosh, I'm dreaming. This isn't real, right? Do you become depressed and angry at the dream and push it away? No, right? You do the exact opposite. You get filled with joy of your awakeness and you just start experiencing, but from a very different vantage point, right? You're not looking for fulfillment in the dream, but it's as if the whole dream itself is already fulfilling, just as it is. It's perfect, right? And that's what happens when we awaken to the unreality of the world. It's like the Zen koan: first there is a mountain, then there's no mountain, and then there is a mountain. There is a mountain, there's no mountain, there is a mountain again. What does that mean? We take the world to be real. I'm a separate self in a separate world that can fulfill me. And then we go through some awakening. We start to see there isn't a world separate from me. There's no world outside of me that can fulfill me. It's unreal. It's an illusion. My mind projects it. After some time of being in that void, we start to see the world anew, and it starts to shine with that sacredness and divinity and holiness. And then that's like as if becoming lucid in the dream, where all of a sudden the world has so much meaning because you begin to understand that everything that happens is just here to allow me to experience myself, right? That's why everything is happening. It's not to complete me or give me something I didn't have or whatever. It is to allow me to experience myself in a new way. Everything is here to show me my own infinite, eternal nature. And that's why it's beautiful. And that's why it's lovable. Not because it completes me, because it's an extension of me, right? It's a reflection of me. So you become very interested in life, but from a much different standpoint, right? And so coming back to personal doership now, if the world is unreal, then what is there to do, right? Can you see that? If the world isn't real, where's the need for a personal doer? If there's nothing to accomplish, right? There's nothing to complete myself with, then there's no doer, right? The two are codependent on one another, which is what I often say on these calls or in this masterclass. Each of the three beliefs plays off of one another. It trickles downstream, right? The first belief creates the second belief creates the third. First is, I am a separate self. Second is, the world is real and can complete me. Third is, I am the doer of actions who will complete myself. I will complete my incompletion is the doer, right? So if there's no world outside of me to do anything in, then the belief in personal doership can't arise, can it? So if you uproot belief number 2, you cut off belief number 3, right? That the external world has any independent existence is now no longer a belief system for me. Then belief number 3, I'm the doer, can't arise. And so this is the doorway to real vision. When we talk about vision from ACIM, we mean the vision of oneness, where you live with that recognition that all of creation is just naturally, exuding, shining forth with the radiance of God, which is synonymous with I. When we could say it like this, when the seer is forgotten, then everything that is seen gets endowed with I. That's called oneness or unity consciousness. And when I say seer, what I mean is there is an independent self in here doing the seeing, right? There's a self that's making seeing happen. And that's just a projection the mind makes. There's just seeing, right? There's just seeingness. It's just happening forever for eternity. And you are that. There's no independent self or entity that does seeing. But nevertheless, we are projecting this separate self that's doing seeing onto everything we're looking at and identifying I. And when I identify with an object, then I cut off the rest of the universe, right? I am this thought, I am this feeling, I am this sensation. But when that seer's forgotten, you go, oh, there is no self in here doing anything, seeing actions, nothing. There's no independent existence inside this body. There's just the universal existence. I am that. So when that seer is forgotten, now that sense of I, which was getting localized, which we talked about last week, is now everywhere. Does that make sense? That's how unity consciousness, or we could say oneness, comes into our direct experience. And we can't get rid of the seer if we think what we're seeing is real, right? It has to be back engineered this way. You can't try to get rid of the notion that you're an independent, separate seer. You're the experiencer, right? Isolated from the universe. There's a subject in the universe that's experiencing it. You can't get rid of that belief if you think that the world, the objects you're experiencing are real, right? They're permanent, they're eternal like I am, and they can fulfill me. You have to get rid of that belief first, and then the seer will collapse with it. So really, it's just realigning our perception a bit, right? We are not in bondage, you guys. We're not bound by anything. We're not even suffering. Even suffering is something we're aware of. It's a story has been energized for many, many years. So it's got a lot of, attention behind it, but you can just be the open sky that's aware of it. You can choose to stop giving it meaning. And if you don't give anything meaning, nothing can affect you, right? So it's really this practice of learning how to stop giving illusions meaning. That's all awakening is. It isn't actually becoming free, because if you ever were in bondage, then you can't ever really be free, right? If I was truly in bondage before and now I'm free, it implies bondage is still possible, right? I can slip back into it again. So the next time a unloving thought is present, oh, I'm in bondage now. We just go back again and we betray ourselves again. We just have to build this conviction that I am absolutely, totally as free as I could ever be. Always, already, right? I'm not becoming free. I'm not getting free. I am freedom itself. But I've been giving lots of attention to false projections, and I'm just learning how to stop doing that. Like, isn't that such a more stress-free approach to awakening? I sure think it is. I prefer it.